There are acts of self-destruction in literature as far back as we can see. Ajax in the Iliad uh, really decided to end everything for himself because he felt he had dishonored himself. And these things have been with us for who knows how long, even back when we had more primitive tools for the matter. These things are in our mythologies, they are in our legends, they are in our stories as long as stories have been told. But the way that Sylvia Plath talks about these things is a little bit different than classically they are defined. Classically, they are defined as having to do predominantly with honor, predominantly with someone sacrificing. Sylvia Plath is talking about this as performative. And if it is performative, is it really destructive? If it is performative, is destruction the goal? We will get into that in this video. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear, of course, in 3 separate playlists here on the channel. Number 1 being the poetry discussion playlist, now approaching 700 videos strong. Number 2 being the Sylvia Plath playlist, a playlist of videos exclusively over Sylvia Plath's poetry. And number 3 being the 30 must-read poems playlist here on the channel. Each of the 30 must-read poems videos includes 3 sections, number 1 being a brief biography of the writer, number 2 being an overview of the types of poetry that writer writes, and number 3 being an analysis of the poem itself. So, who was Sylvia Plath? Sylvia Plath was born October 27th, 1932, in Boston, Massachusetts. Her father, Otto, was a German-born entomologist who was 47 when she was born and published a book about bumblebees when Sylvia was 2. Her mother, Aurelia, went to college with the hopes of being a writer. She graduated with a bachelor's of secretarial science. She would return to college, earn a master's of arts in English and German. Sylvia's brother, Warren, was born in 1935. Shortly after Sylvia turned 8, Otto, her father, would die of complications related to diabetes. That same year, Sylvia would publish her first poem in Boston Herald's children's section. And subsequently she would publish several more times before going off to college in 1950, when she would attend Smith College, where again she would continue to publish. And in the publishing world, she did so well for herself that she earned herself a guest editor position at Mademoiselle magazine. But Plath didn't take well whether it was the new city, New York, or the work, or possibly personalities. She would have a self-harm incident, and then, in August of 1953, at the age of 20, Plath was turned down for a writing program at Harvard. After this, it seemed she had a major depressive episode, leading to Plath receiving electroconvulsive therapy treatments. And she would, shortly thereafter, make an attempt on her own life. She then spent 6 months in psychiatric care receiving more ECT and insulin shock therapy before returning to college to finish her senior year. Subsequently, she would graduate summa cum laude in English in 1955. She would also win a Fulbright Fellowship for English at Newnham College, Cambridge, and she left for England that fall. In February of the next year, she would meet Ted Hughes at a party in Cambridge. They were married June 16th, but they kept it a secret for fear that Plath might lose her fellowship. June of the next year, the two moved to the United States. and in 1958 they settled in Boston with Plath working as a receptionist while the two wrote, and they would also get to know Robert Lowell and Anne Sexton at the same time. December of the next year, the couple moved back to London, and on April 1st, 1960, Sylvia gave birth to their daughter, Frida. The following October, Plath's first collection, The Colossus, was published. It is now recognized as a momentous occasion in the literary world. But that event was just prior to momentum of a different kind in the troubled poet's life. The next year, Plath had a miscarriage and told her therapist that Hughes physically abused her prior to the event. Not long after that, she finished her novel, The Bell Jar, and a few months after that, she gave birth to her son, Nicholas. This, too, would be beset by misfortune, as in the summer of 1962, Plath would get into a car wreck which she later said was not an accident. And the next month, she found that Hughes was having an affair. Plath became consumed with her work and moved back to London with her children, where eventually her depression would return and take control. She couldn't sleep and lost substantial weight, and her doctor, fearing the worst, assigned her a live-in nurse. But the morning the nurse was scheduled to arrive, Plath lined the door to her kitchen by taping towels along the openings and turned the gas on to her oven. That morning, February 11th, 1963, Sylvia Plath took her own life while her children were sleeping just feet away. Sylvia Plath is most known for confessionalist poetry, but much of her poetry also happens to be existentialist poetry. Confessional poetry is the poetry of the personal, or I. This style of writing emerged in the late 1950s and early 1960s and is associated with poets such as Robert Lowell, Sylvia Plath, Anne Sexton, and W.D. Snodgrass. Lowell's book, Life Studies, was a highly personal account of his life and familial ties and had a significant impact on American poetry. Plath and Sexton were both students of Lowell and noted that his work influenced their own writing. An existential poem confronts the fundamental questions of human existence, exploring themes of alienation, absurdity, and the search for meaning in an indifferent universe. It delves into the subjective experiences of individuals grappling with their own mortality, freedom, and isolation. By mirroring the complexities of human consciousness, existential poetry seeks to illuminate the existential condition, offering introspective reflections on the human condition and the complexities of life. I have done it again. 1 year in every 10 I manage it. A sort of walking miracle, my skin bright as a Nazi lampshade, my right foot a paperweight, my face a featureless fine Jew linen. Peel off the napkin, oh, my enemy, do I terrify? The nose, the eye pits, the full set of teeth, the sour breath will vanish in a day. Soon the flesh, the grave cave ate will be at home on me. And I, a smiling woman, I am only 30, and like the cat I have 9 times to die. This is number 3. What a trash to annihilate each decade. What a million filaments the peanut-crunching crowd shoves in to see. Them unwrap me hand and foot, the big striptease. Gentlemen, ladies, these are my hands, my knees. I may be skin and bone, nevertheless I am the same identical woman. The first time it happened I was 10. It was an accident. The second time I meant to last it out and not come back at all. I rocked shut as a seashell. They had to call and pick the worms off me like sticky pearls. Dying is an art. Like everything else, I do it exceptionally well. I do it so it feels like hell. I do it so it feels real. I guess you could say I've a call. It's easy enough to do it in a cell. It's easy enough to do it and stay put. It's the theatrical comeback in broad day to the same place, the same face, the same brute, amused shout. A miracle that knocks me out. There is a charge for the eyeing of my scars. There is a charge for the hearing of my heart. It really goes. And there is a charge, a very large charge, for a word or a touch or a bit of blood or a piece of my hair or my clothes. So, Herr Doctor, so, Herr Enemy, I am your opus. I am your valuable, the pure gold baby that melts to a shriek. I turn and burn. Do not think I underestimate your great concern. Ash, ash, you poke and stir, flesh, bone, there is nothing there. A cake of soap, a wedding ring, a gold filling. Herr God, Herr Lucifer, beware, beware. Out of the ash I rise with my red hair, and I eat men like air. Now, I am not generally a great big fan of biographical criticism. I prefer new criticism, which is to say that I prefer to suggest, I prefer to depend upon simply the text itself to bring in everything that I need to know, maybe some classical symbolic stuff as well. But as this is a confessional confessional poem, and this was written months before Sylvia Plath ended up taking her own life, I think it is fair to take the self-destructive part of this poem literally. That is to say, the dying part of this poem is literal, at least for the most part. I think that the allusions to repeatedly dying are repeatedly giving up, right? Repeatedly getting to the place where, okay, now I can die. And this poem, I will always try to give credit where it's due when I find something that is, in my opinion, exceptional. This right here is one of the starkest and most haunting visuals that I have ever seen in a poem. A sort of walking miracle, my skin bright as a Nazi lampshade. So this is, I think, an allusion to the being risen part of things, being resurrected part of the Lazarus tale. So maybe I should take a step back. Lazarus in the Bible had died and was raised from the dead by Jesus Christ. So that is the allusion in Lady Lazarus. And this visual right here, a sort of walking miracle, my skin bright as a Nazi lampshade. For anyone who doesn't know, one of the things that happened during the Holocaust was that the sickest of the sick would have leather made from Jewish flesh, And one of the things with which they would do is they would make lampshades. Pardon me. So oftentimes people who had tattoos, they would have tattooed lampshades. Um, the the woman known as the Bitch of Buchenwald was known for taking scrotum skin and making lampshades and whatnot out of it. Absolutely wild. Why? But the image here is that the resurrected skin shining through with the power of light, the power of resurrection, is reminiscent of the Nazi lampshades. So it's interesting. This poem is very interesting, but I think that sometimes more is made out of parts of this poem than are really all that compelling, and some other compelling parts of this poem are kind of ignored. But what I want to do for this part of the discussion is reevaluate the fact that the self-destructive line through this poem is literal, but not necessarily that it's literal. What I want to do is take it and broaden it. Let us not interpret this so much as self-deletion. Let us interpret the poem then talking about self-destruction. I think that is comparable enough that it is not too off base. And if we do that, if we are reinterpreting this as self-destruction, there is an incredible false bravado here. False bravado is something that, for example, Hemingway often gets accused of. Speaking up that you are the authority, speaking up that you are the manly man, right? So this poem would be speaking up that you really do have this desire for self-destruction. And how can you question that when the biographical portion of this is really so stark, is really so immediate from this poem? This here, dying, is an art like everything else. I do it exceptionally well. Except that you don't, right? If you did dying all that well, you wouldn't be around to write these words, Lazarus or not. The resurrection here is being resurrected from real close calls, but it's not dying. Real close calls, but it's not final. So this stanza here comes with a false bravado to it, and it's interesting because we have to kind of deconstruct it backwards to get the full thrust of things. Dying is an art like everything else. I do it exceptionally well. If you start here, what do you do exceptionally well? Die. Okay, well, that's false bravado. You don't. You don't do it exceptionally well, or you wouldn't be here in the first place. Dying is an art. Okay, well, if we are accepting dying as an art, so for example, the Stoics would agree with you, okay, but they would argue about the palette with which you're painting here. The Stoics sort of believed in this quiet death, this fading away, even if it's in battle that you fade away. You don't make a big scene of it. You just do what has to be done, and if that leads to your downfall, then it does. The Stoics have no time for self-destruction. There are always things to do. So the poet here is talking about dying is an art. And in this way, if so much is made in this poem by the title alone of Lazarus, of rising again, so much is made in this poem of the spectacle part of things, the art of things. So much is made of the I do it exceptionally well part of things. So much is made of the experience part of things. So much is made of the art of the death itself. Is it safe to ask whether or not death finality was ever really the goal? If you're writing a poem about dying time and again, if you're writing a poem about your uh, self-destructive behaviors, then the self-destruction is not the end goal. The attention for it is. I have what might be a crackpot theory about self-destruction that often ends in finality. I can't say the words, you understand, about YouTube. I think these behaviors oftentimes are basically the same thing as drug addiction. There is a thrill that comes with these things, but soon that thrill is not enough. There is attention that comes with these things, but soon that attention is not enough. So someone might start with alcohol. And that's great for a while, man. Yeah, I just get to loosen up. I get to be myself. I get to not think about things. Well, soon enough, the alcohol kind of wears off a little bit. The feeling of drunkenness, maybe it's not so great the next morning. Maybe you're getting older, so you turn to, well, maybe some alcohol and maybe something to smoke, right? All of a sudden, the exhilaration that was there in your early drinking days comes back. And all it took was a couple puffs of this thing. Well, all of a sudden you're having a real good time, and the puffing and the drinking just kind of wears you down. Well, isn't there some stuff you can put up your nose to wake you back up? Right? All of a sudden, you have full-on addictions and your life is in the gutter. Well, with self-destructive behavior, what if for some people it's the same thing? They start the self-destructive behavior and there is a thrill that comes with it because they feel it is them taking action on themselves, okay? And then maybe they get a little boost of attention from it as well. Someone asks, hey, where's that scar come from? Are you bleeding? Right? Now you've got attention and the rush. Well, maybe the next time, whatever happens in the cuff of your shirt under your sleeve isn't enough. Maybe it has to move to the wrist. Maybe it has to move to a different form. Maybe it has to do with taping the door shut to your kitchen and turning the oven on. What if you never really meant to go all the way through with it? You meant to get caught. You meant, and I'm not suggesting that this is what happened with SYLVIA Plath. I'm just saying that I think that this sometimes does perpetuate in people's lives and they don't recognize it while it's happening. So this idea, what if this idea for our speaker of the false bravado of being good at death, being Lady Lazarus, was a mistake? All of a sudden, there's no more poem to be written. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week, this poetry every Monday, and I hope to have you back for the next one.